On my mark, number one, engage. Welcome to Eat Sleep Nerd, a podcast where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. Comic books, video games, movies, TV shows, and anything else that gets geeks more excited than Captain Pike watching the cooking channel.
Welcome to episode number 15. I'm Corey Winter, and as always, I'm joined by my nerdy brother, Josh Winter, and our geeky friend, Jason Summer. In this episode, we are giving our full Season 1 review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds and Thor Love and Thunder. We'll also be doing a quick dive through some geeky news, but first, we'll be continuing our Peak Geek debate with an argument for which live-action or animated version of Spider-Man is the best of the best. And as always, please share this show with your friends, family, neighbors, pets, aliens, zombies, ghosts. Jason?
Yeah, I was just waiting to see how far this list was going to go.
Man. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed, buddy.
Share it with everyone.
And you'll have to forgive me on the voice. I was kind of knocked on my butt with some sort of cold, and I've been left with this gravelly.
It's not even gravelly. It's just sad.
But I'm sorry.
So I was going to say, we are all back from our impending deaths from last week. We took an impromptu week off because we were all just sick with various things. Jason, it still sounds like you're getting over it.
Just a little bit. Yeah. And to the listeners, I'm so sorry.
Like, he's not making this voice up. Like, this is actually
this
his
isn't
voice.
like a
No.
He's not playing it up for laughs. Like, this is really what he sounds like.
No,
bless his heart.
No, I don't like sounding like this, but I feel great. I feel really, really good.
Oh, goodness. So how are you guys doing aside from not being able to talk? What have you been doing this week, geeky-wise?
Oh, geeky-wise? Not a lot. I'm making my way through The Next Generation. I'm trying to watch everything Trek in the order in which it was released. So I'm now on season 6. I think it's season 6. The Next Generation.
I think that's one of their strongest seasons.
Yeah, it's one of the few that, like, it really did get better the longer it went. Like, it's, if you compare one of the first episodes to one of the last episodes, significantly different. And I think a lot of the times when we remember that show, we're only thinking about the end, because, like, the big thing that stood out to me when I started it over was Picard is actually kind of a dick at the beginning of the series. Like, he's really not a overwhelmingly likable person. And he was kind of softened and warmed up getting into, like, seasons 2 and 3. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I kind of got whiplash when I went back to the beginning. It was just kind of like, man, especially to Wesley, he is not a fan. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing.
When I think about the first season of The Next Generation, I think about the fact that if it had been run in this day and time, it would never have made it past the first season, because I think the first season was just so rough.
Yeah, it was. And
it just wasn't good. And it would have been canceled after the first season these days. So I'm kind of glad that it was released back in the late 80s. Yeah.
Like, if you go in as a Star Trek fan, it's okay. But, like, if that was your first exposure, I don't think you would have lasted.
Oh yeah. In retrospect, it's like even those first 2 episodes are just really rough.
What about you, Corey?
Have you guys watched The Terminal List on Amazon with Chris Pratt?
It's on my list. I haven't watched it yet.
So I don't understand the reviews it's been getting. Like, people are calling it like a mediocre 40s, 50s out of 100 score. I just don't understand that, because I think it's fantastic. And they're calling it like a show for dads type of show. I don't really get that either. Like, it's a really good suspenseful thriller, and Chris Pratt goes all out with it. Like, he really shows off his acting chops. But, like,
you're not a father, so
and I'm a dog dad. But
your dog dad.
So the question is: when you say people, do you mean critics or do you mean people?
Critics, which I guess aligns with how we usually feel about critics, is that we never really agree with them. I think the score is in this case, very unfair. Like, it's a fantastic show. I've been kept on the edge of my seat the entire time. I only have one episode left, so I don't actually know how it ends, but it's been fantastic. So,
well, I mean,
highly recommend.
I think it's what we've talked about before. If it's not an art house thing, it's like it's like critics are afraid to say that mainstream stuff is fun. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it is scoring a considerably better audience score, a 95%.
See?
So yeah, completely misaligned with
people.
Critics are feeling about it.
People like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So highly recommend. It is an Amazon show, so it's right, in my opinion, right up there with Amazon's Reacher and Jack Ryan shows.
Nice.
Like, super high quality, super well told story. So highly recommend. What about you, Jason?
So I started delving back into The Boys, which is difficult for me because it's really kind of beyond my tolerance for graphic violence.
I think it is for most people, but
it's very difficult. And the only reason why I'm watching it is because we are going to talk about it on one of these episodes.
Well, but aside from the story's not bad. Level, I was going to say, are you really enjoying it aside from the graphicness of it?
Yeah, the story's not bad. I do enjoy watching Carl Urban act. He's always fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's designed to be shocking. Like, that's the point.
Yeah, I just don't want to be shocked in that way. So yeah, there's just it just kind of crosses a couple thresholds for me. But yes, the story is good, the acting is good, the production value is good. So
to our listeners at home, what you have to understand is that Jason is a genuinely good soul. like, and I mean that sincerely, Jason. I'm trying to give you a compliment.
Thank you.
But like, it's he is truthfully and honestly a good person. And so that's not surprising to me at all that you struggle with some of that. So
that is very kind.
That is within your character.
Have you, I think we might have talked about this maybe even before this podcast started, but did you ever watch Invincible? That show?
Not yet.
So that's another one that'll just mess with you.
Yeah. Like, Josh and I pounded through that season in like one sitting.
Seriously. We ordered like a sandwich halfway through it.
Like, and
we ordered it. We didn't even go get it. Like, it was brought to us.
Yeah, and it's like right up there with The Boys, where it shows like the dark side of superheroes, but obviously in animation form. But I'm interested if you would have the same like visceral reaction to it as you do The Boys.
Yeah. Well, it's a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
So there's
It's a little different. It's not so much shocking as it is. I mean, it is visceral. It is graphic, but they're not trying to be shocking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you might enjoy that one a little bit more. I don't know. It's worth watching. You've got time. You're sick.
Now, interestingly enough, a show that's equally as graphic, violence-wise, I've been watching Stranger Things. But I think it's a different type of violence. It's more fantasy and less, grounded in trying to some, anyway. But I just finished watching Stranger Things, and I was kind of hoping that they'd finish up a story, but they've got a cliffhanger going for season 5.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't watched it, to watch Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think that's on our docket to talk about at some point.
Yes, I still have to watch the entire show, but yes, we will. So before we get into our next segment, little housekeeping things. So we had planned to talk about The Boys this episode, but Jason is still catching up. So we're going to push that one off for one more week because we do want to get everyone's opinion on that one. We also will be saving Miss Marvel for next week because Josh is actually still catching up on that one.
Haven't started.
All right.
Haven't even started.
All right. So for this episode, we'll be touching on Star Trek Strange New Worlds and Thor Love and Thunder. And the next episode, episode 16, we'll be talking The Boys Season 3 and Miss Marvel Season 1.
We're really on episode 15.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
High five.
Those of you who have been listening, thank you so much for being here. This has been fun. So, yay!
That's for you, audience.
You're right.
That's for you.
We'll give you bigger applause after you share it.
Let's get into some nerdy news. Let's start with an easy one. So, Lego has officially announced a set based on The Office.
Woo!
For those that don't know about Lego, they actually have this program where users can submit their own custom designs, and they'll typically be based on some kind of intellectual property. That's how we got the Friends sets, like the Friends apartment complex and Friends Central Perk and stuff like that. So people will just submit their own designs, and if Lego feels like they can get the license to it, they'll go get the license and they'll actually produce a set. So that has happened with The Office. A user submitted a design for The Office Lego set. Like, it's a 1,164 piece set coming out October 1st. It will be available for $119.99. It's available for pre-order now, and it looks awesome. For any fan of The Office, this looks awesome.
I believe, there's an image in this image, and I saw this earlier this week. I think there's an image, or there's a Lego piece of the Jell-O with the stapler in it.
Yes. Right,
which I think is
right
hilarious.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I will be sharing this in the show notes, but yeah.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen it, the entire layout is essentially the main office floor, Michael's office, and the conference room, which has had the big table moved out, and it's got the little seating.
Yeah, it does not have the extension, I think is what they called it in the show.
The annex.
The annex, that's correct. Yeah. But I'm sure once this comes out, some Lego fan will go design that. Yeah, it has a bunch of call outs and references and Easter eggs to the show. Like in the conference
it even
room,
has
there's
little
like a
blinds.
whiteboard. Yeah, it has little blinds.
Like, it has little blinds. Have we ever seen Lego blinds before? I've been doing Lego a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen Lego blinds.
It's hard to tell if they're stickers or not, because I've definitely seen sticker blinds, but I can't tell if these are actually. These might be.
That
stickers.
looks like stickers. Yeah, I think that's stickers. Still,
but
that's
like,
cool.
But like even just the images that we're looking at, like there's one with Dwight holding the megaphone with a trash can
fire.
That's just hilarious.
Yeah.
So 15 minifigs.
Yes, it has pretty much every single character. Let's see if we can go back to that one. So yeah, it looks like I don't remember all the characters' names, so it has everyone that I can tell of the main office crew.
I don't see anyone missing. I don't see Robert California, and that kind of makes me sad.
It has at least the original crew. It's hard to tell. I don't have the full list pulled up, but anyway.
So
it looks awesome.
what we're looking at there, a picture of the whole lineup of the characters, and we're trying to figure out who's who.
Yeah. And I'm sure they'll actually. And I've already pre-ordered this. Like as soon as this was announced, I went on Lego.com and I pre-ordered it. So,
You Lego junkie.
Well, see, the cool thing about Lego and the way I do it is that this set is made in a way that is going to be easy to build out a full building out of.
Yep.
So it's going to fit in perfectly with like a city. So like a modular building. You could very easily take this set and just build walls around it and make it a proper building. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. If you're a fan of The Office or just a fan of Lego, this will be a cool set to have. So pre-orders are available now for $119 US. You can get that on Lego.com or Walmart or pretty much anywhere. So that's Lego. Our next story, let's get into the Skull and Bones. That's another easy one. Josh, Skull and Bones.
Yes.
You're super excited for this.
Skull and Bones. Okay, so I was super excited for it. The tides have turned. No, so it is finally like announced. We figured this was coming for a while. They did the usual leak where it shows up rated in a few different countries, and so for those again who don't know or missed that episode, this has been in development hell forever, like over a decade now. Spun off of the Assassin's Creed franchise, specifically all the pirating that you could do in Black Flag.
Yes, and just to give you like a reference for time, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was a launch title for the PlayStation 4. It's been that long since this game has been in development.
Yeah, which means it also came out on PS3.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we've been waiting for this for a second. So long that most of us forgot it existed. and so anyway, the thing that has kind of soured me towards it a little bit is now that all of the official release info has come out and everything. It is going to be a game as a service.
Oh, is it?
Title.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Explain how that works. That is a new title or new genre.
The idea of game as a service, it kind of spun off of the MMO, like the online stuff, but the idea being that the game is never truly done. It will continue to get updates and releases, and more importantly, has microtransactions. So you're never done paying for it either. Yeah. So that's kind of soured me to it a little bit. It's as always for me, it's going to come down to are the other things that I have to buy integral to playing the game, or is it cosmetics and stuff like that? I'm perfectly fine with paying extra money if you're trying to change the way something looks or something like that's fine. But if the game is unplayable without me spending more money, I'm out. I'm 100% out.
So my job in real life is a software licensing analyst. And this is what I'm seeing more and more of.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah. You don't outright buy a software product anymore. You don't buy, like, even if you buy like a CD or another hard copy media, you're buying the rights to play it, and everything is becoming subscription based, and everything is becoming a temporary or termed or licensed. So, it's very rare now that you buy a product outright anymore. If you look at Microsoft, most of your at-home software licensing, it's a subscription. Now they say, like, because you're paying for a subscription, that you're able to always keep your software updated. So in this case, you'll always be able to get, new upgrades and whatever for the game or expansions for the game, but you're still continuously paying for it. You never own it. So I would expect to see more and more of this as software licensing becomes the game.
I don't know. I feel like Ubisoft, who is making Skull and Bones and all the Assassin's Creed games and numerous other games, I feel like they use that as an excuse to make lesser quality games.
Because it'll eventually be fixed.
Yeah, eventually, like 2 years after it comes out. That's kind of what's ruined the Tom Clancy games for me. Not, just they are ruining the Tom Clancy name aside. The games that they make under the Tom Clancy name, like The Division and Ghost Recon, those games that have come out the past 5 years, the concept of them is awesome. Like I have enjoyed playing them. However, they are not up to the quality that Ubisoft used to have. Like, especially with the most recent Ghost Recon game, like it launched and it was awful. Like you could not play it because it was just so bad. Broken. Yeah. And like they didn't really get fixed for 2 years.
Well, I think part of the problem is that I think as consumers, we've been kind of herded into this mentality that once you buy a software product, it can't be returned.
Yeah.
And I think that if more and more people were to ask for a refund because of low quality, that could turn this, back to high quality production again. But right now, we've been so trained, like once the box is opened, you can't return it. Once you've downloaded it, you can't return it. And, I think we've been trained to think that way.
Well, I mean, the big thing is that the digital age has kind of ruined us, right? It's kind of like when you're filming a movie. It's, we'll fix it in post. Well, now post is as long as you need it to be, even if it's after release. Back in the day, the game was the game. If you put it out broken, there was nothing you could do. It was done. These days, it plays enough, and we'll fix it in the next big update. We'll have a day one patch.
Right.
Which has become the norm. As soon as you install a game, there's a 6 gigabyte patch that goes onto it.
Yeah. So as far as Skull and Bones goes, so it is coming out officially on November 8th for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Google Stadia, and PC via the Epic Games Store and Ubisoft Store. So we're looking at the images here, and I'll share a link to this in the show notes.
I mean, it looks beautiful.
It does. Honestly, though, I feel like it kind of looks like Assassin's Creed 4 that came out 10 years ago. Like, I mean, and
higher res meshes, but that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like graphics don't hold me back from a game. Like, as long as it's something as long as it's not like pixelated and stuff and it plays fine. Like, I don't really care too much about graphics. But it just the images themselves, they make it look like an old game. I don't know if you get that feeling, Josh, but
yeah, some things. So like lighting on it is solid, and things like the little things that tell you when something is current generation, like it's okay, it's there. Things that I've seen a lot of people talking about, the water is not particularly outstanding. A lot of people obviously are comparing it to Sea of Thieves, which has been out for about as long as this game has been delayed. Like Sea of Thieves, I think, is in its 6th or 7th season now. And it has a cartoony vibe, but the water looks better on Sea of Thieves than it does on this. So I don't know. I mean, like I've been excited about it for a long time. I was excited when it kind of leaked that it was probably coming out. I'll play it. I'm just kind of like you said, the graphics are whatever, but I'm going to play it on PC and mod the crap out of it anyway. But the game as a service thing, I don't like that.
Yeah. So this game came out of fan appreciation for that segment of Assassin's Creed way back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this game is still relevant? Because I don't hear very many calls for a pirate video game.
Well, so that's the funny thing is that it's not. I've been teaching a high school drumline camp all week, and those kids are super. Like they were just randomly talking about Skull and Bones and how excited they are for it. So like I think it's going to be a very like general audience type of game.
Okay,
it's not going to really be for hardcore gamers, but I think it's going to be mass appeal for a lot of people.
Okay,
yeah. Sea of Thieves is one of the most played games on Xbox Live, like consistently.
Okay. All right.
Everyone wants to be a pirate, Jason.
Even
don't
Captain
take this
Pike.
from them.
All right, let's get into our Peak Geek debate part deuce. So in this debate, we're talking about the in other media portrayals of a comic book character. In this case, we're talking about Spider-Man, both live action and animation, whichever one we think is best. So I've compiled a list. I'm pretty sure it's all encompassing. There might be a couple I left off because Spider-Man has been in media for decades. Numerous people have played him, but I've got at least the most notable ones here. So obviously live action Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's.
Yeah, I think it's Spider-Man's because it's plural of Spider-Man.
There you go.
Or is it multiple spiders? Spiders.
Spidersman.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Spooderman.
Yeah. Anyway, we've obviously had Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. Then on the voice acting side, we've had Yuri Lowenthal, who is most famous for Marvel's Spider-Man video game. Jake Johnson, Chris Pine, he did Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
Robbie Damon, Cole Howard, Drake Bell. Yes, that Drake Bell from Drake and Josh.
I don't think
Sam
we're allowed to
Riegel.
talk about him anymore.
James Arnold Taylor, Josh Keaton, Neil Patrick Harris. Yes, that Neil Patrick Harris. Christopher Daniel Barnes, and Reno Romano. So we've had lots of Spider-Men.
Spider people.
So here's the thing about Spider-Man. I have lost sleep over this argument in my head about who I think is the best Spider-Man. Because there's so many things to consider. Because like when I'm like reading one of the Spider-Man comics, I'm actually picturing like Yuri Lowenthal's voice in my head. Because he has like a pretty iconic voice for Spider-Man nowadays because he was so convincing in the video games. He has actually voiced Spider-Man in multiple video games. He's done Marvel Spider-Man, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, obviously the sequel to Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, He's also done the upcoming Marvel's Midnight Suns, and then obviously Marvel's Spider-Man 2 coming out next year.
Goodness.
But then live action, it's like you have to include them because they were like the full thing. And I love Andrew, Toby, and Tom all for different reasons. I've really struggled with this. And before I give my answer, how are you guys feeling about just trying to choose a best Spider-Man?
Well, I think that's the goal of what we're doing here. So I think that's what we have to do.
Well, like before we get into our debate amongst each other, like I'm debating internally. Like it's a struggle.
Oh, so, I already know whose mine is, hands down.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this is not that deep for me.
What?
Yeah.
Well, Corey, you're like the biggest Spider-Man fan.
Right, exactly.
So, like you guys got to understand at home. Corey is recording right now in his office / game / Spider-Man room. Every decoration is nothing but Spider-Man. So you got to understand, like, this is Corey's like top of the top.
It makes sense to me that you're conflicted.
Yeah, I never doubted you would be. But for me, it's not as deep. Like I've got a pretty solid answer about who my favorite is and why.
All right. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Lay it out there.
Okay.
So from a voice acting standpoint, I'm actually going to give it to Neil Patrick Harris. Like
it was very close for me. He was like, he's probably going to be my number 2 or 3.
Yeah.
For voice.
Like to me, that's the cartoon that I picture when I picture cartoon Spider-Man. And so like that was like actually kind of a no-brainer for me. Although I got to give an honorable mention to Chris Pine from Into the Spider-Verse. I actually really, really, really liked his take on Spider-Man. And it's kind of sad that that's the one that doesn't make it very long.
Yeah.
But that was kind of one of those, like, we were watching the movie and like, then it clicked that that's Chris Pine. I'm like, oh man, like that's cool. I liked him. So no, I'm going to give it to Neil Patrick Harris, but I really, really, really liked Chris Pine in Into the Spider-Verse. From a live action standpoint, I have 2 answers, but it's really one answer. So as far as who I think actually did the best job, I'm going to say Andrew Garfield.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just as far as the snarkiness and balancing the sorrow with the joy of being a superhero a little bit. Like, I feel like he was the only one that managed to balance, again, the sorrow and the sadness of everything that's happening to him and has happened to him and is going to happen to him. But he never let that take away from the fact of having powers is freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that is exciting. It just has a pretty big burden that comes with it. But he tries to keep those ideas separate. And I hate that he didn't get as much time to explore that. He was the best actor, I think, with the worst movies. And that's not his fault.
Yeah, that goes back to the whole Ben Affleck thing.
Exactly. Best Batman probably had the worst movies.
Yeah.
So that's who I think did the best. My favorite is always going to be Tobey Maguire.
Oh, that's
he just can't not be. That is Spider-Man to me. That is my Spider-Man. Like, I remember going to see that with you and Dad. Like, so I remember that.
I'll go ahead and debate this. So Tobey, for me, like, he was my first Spider-Man. Like, I remember going to see those movies. Like, I grew up with him. But he went too hard with the pathetic nerd dork aspect of it, to where he always just seemed kind of
like a loser.
Like a loser. Even when he was Spider-Man, he kind of felt like a loser. And I don't know. That's not how I picture Spider-Man. And so, like, when Andrew came along, he really balanced the line where when he was not wearing the costume, he was the outcast. He was the nerd that no one wanted to talk to. But then when we put on the Spider-Man costume, he completely changed personas. He was this confident, strong, goofy guy. And so, like, Andrew Garfield really did both sides of the Peter Parker Spider-Man character perfectly. And that's why he's my favorite.
I'm going to debate your point, though. I'm going to debate your own point. I would say that is more a reflection of society and how it has changed over the last 20 years as opposed to acting and narrative choices. So
Maybe.
20 years ago, when Spider-Man, like OG Spider-Man, the Spider-Man that was just called Spider-Man, came out, being a nerd was, you were a pariah. It was not cool to be a nerd yet. All right. Being a geek, being a dork, being everything, like, it wasn't fun. It wasn't cool. No one wanted to be that. Even by the time we got to The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, society had kind of started to shift a little bit. It wasn't cool to be a nerd yet, but it didn't automatically make you like untouchable. And I think that came through a little bit. He was definitely a dork, but he wasn't like getting shoved into lockers and stuff like that. Like you weren't being bullied for being a nerd. You just weren't part of the cool kids. And then you get to Tom Holland's, which is quote unquote modern or current or contemporary, whatever you want to call it. And like, he's a friggin' rock star because he's smart. And I think that's more of a societal shift than anything. We embrace nerds now. He goes to a whole school that's for nerds. And even Flash is reinterpreted as kind of a dick, but he's not a straight up bully anymore. He's also a nerd. He's going to the same nerd school that Peter Parker is.
So I'll come back to the argument for why I don't like Toby, but I want to go ahead and get Jason's picks.
Yeah. So I've been listening intently. I just have been saving my
We
voice.
know you can barely talk, dude.
Yes. So my favorite is Nicholas Hammond from the 1970s series.
Oh, the original Spider-Man.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Do what?
Yeah.
I don't even have him on here.
Yeah. I had to go look it up while you guys were talking. But I remember watching it, and it was fun to watch because it was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But man, it was horrible. Like he just threw ropes like out of his hand for the webs. No, I think the Spider-Man No Way Home made me really rethink my perspective on the three different Spider-Mans.
Spider people.
The Spider people. I did not like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Screw you, Jason.
At all. Like, there was no part of it that I liked.
Doubling down at all.
But I do realize he is an excellent actor, and he's a really likable person. In Spider-Man No Way Home, he like knocked his version of Spider-Man out of the park. I loved his iteration in No Way Home. And I thought he was actually my favorite out of the three of them in that movie.
Huh.
Tobey Maguire was fun as the youth pastor,
Youth pastor
persona.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just really supportive and like, yeah, I've been there. I've been through all the stuff you guys have been going through. I'm at peace now, and you know, I can work with you guys. I like he had that vibe, and that was really good. But I really enjoyed Andrew Garfield in No Way Home. Having said that, my favorite Spider-Man is Tom Holland.
Ooh,
and
interesting.
For me, he kind of personifies what I imagine Spider-Man would have gone through as he's learning his role in whatever his world is going to be. So I'm probably gonna have to stop there.
Yeah, that's good
because I'm running out of fuel.
No, so I'll agree with you. Like when Spider-Man Homecoming came out, I went and watched it by myself because I wanted to be fully engrossed with everything that was happening in that movie. I did not want any distractions. Yes. Oh, okay. And I loved everything about him. Like, he was the perfect casting. He pulled off the brand new superhero, still learning everything. So he's kind of immature, but also he understands that he has this responsibility. It's like, I love that about Tom Holland. And I think now that we've gotten No Way Home, we see that there's a big chapter opening up for him and how he's going to be more mature going forward. I'm really excited to see that. He is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. And like, he does have, like, when he puts on the mask, he is goofy and sarcastic, and like, he talks during fights, which is kind of funny. That's why I love Spider-Man the most, is that he, during these fight scenes, like, he just will will banter with the person he's fighting. Like I love that about the character.
Yeah, I agree.
Tom Holland does a really great job of that. But going back to Toby, he just, and I don't want to get too stuck on this because we do have to move on at some point. But just Toby was whiny to me.
Well, you're whiny to me.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I think it's, yeah. Fair enough. I don't know. That's why Toby does not get the top spot.
I get what
for
you're
me.
saying. Like, I don't feel like you have a invalid opinion on that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it, but I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah. I really want to, I want to share where Tom Holland won it for me. It was in, of course, Homecoming, because, it's the first one we saw it in. But when he's trapped under the building and he's trying to get help.
Yeah.
He sounded so much like a kid.
Yeah.
Who was scared and trapped. Like I felt that. Like I truly felt like he was scared and trapped. And then he made the decision
he's got to help
to be the hero.
Yeah.
That's what won it for me right there.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's going from one mental, perspective to another, and he showed it on screen, and it was really impressive. And that's what did it for me.
He's had that moment in all three of his movies, like in Far From Home, when he's realized that Mysterio is a bad guy, and he goes through that big fight scene, through the fun house, quote unquote, of Mysterio, and he gets hit by the train and stuff. Like he is terrified that he doesn't know what's real and what's not anymore. That was fantastic. And then obviously in No Way Home, when, spoilers, Aunt May dies, he is completely broken. And that entire scene was Oscar worthy for me. So yeah, Tom Holland has definitely been a fantastic actor for Spider-Man, but Andrew Garfield still takes it away for me.
Okay.
Because even just going back to I say his first movie, he's only had 2, which is sad. Like when you first see him try to be Spider-Man, and he goes and tries to find Uncle Ben's killer, and that scene where he is in the car with the person he thinks it is. Just the quips he has as he's intimidating this bad guy, and just the way he the crotch shot when he goes and I don't know, just the way he enjoys playing Spider-Man, and he really has fun with it when he puts that mask on. I think it's fantastic. So that's why he's my favorite. But I do want to give a shout out to Josh Keaton on the voice acting side. He has played or voiced Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man show that ran for a couple seasons. In my opinion, the best Spider-Man TV show we've ever had. It was fantastic. It got canceled way too soon. But he's also voiced Spider-Man in the video game realm in Shattered Dimensions, as well as Edge of Time and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So Josh Keaton, that is a fantastic voice actor, and fantastic shows and video games. So I think Josh Keaton gets the voice acting crown for me. Andrew Garfield gets the live action crown for me.
And coming from Corey, I think those are really valid and important recognitions, because like we said earlier, Corey is the Spider-Man guy out of the three of us.
And Yuri Lowenthal, I just want to give a shout out to him. And I think Jason and Josh will agree. Those games, his voice acting was fantastic. He made you feel like you were playing
Spider-Man video
Spider-Man.
games.
Yeah.
I love them so much.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield's the best.
Oh, wow. All right, moderator. I like how that wasn't biased in any way.
All right. Our next,
let's move on from this show. Yes.
On our next Peak Geek debate, we'll be talking about who is the best Jedi. We're changing things up a little bit. Just who's the best Jedi, who's the best Sith, and maybe a couple other ones. But stay tuned for Peak Geek Part 3. All right, let's get into our reviews, speculation, discussion segment, where we will be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder, and Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 10, as well as the full series as a whole. Which one do you guys want to start with?
I think we should start with Thor.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's do Thor, and then we'll bring it home.
All right.
Star Trek.
Thor 4, Thor, Love and Thunder. It's
kind of how I felt about it. Yeah.
He is the only character to get a 4th standalone movie in the MCU so far. And I feel like he shouldn't have. Guys, so Josh and I went to go see this together. And as I was walking in, I was telling Josh, we went to see it. What was it? Thursday nights? Like, we were one of the first people to see it.
Yeah.
And the early reviews were coming out, and it was just, very mixed reactions. Lots of people hated it. Lots of people enjoyed it. And I was explaining to Josh, it seems like, especially with phase 4 of the MCU, you have to know what to expect going into it to actually enjoy the movie. Because phase 4 has been very different from previous phases of the MCU, where like you went into it knowing what you're going to get with the formula and everything. And if you're not actually keeping up to date with what these movies actually are pre-release, you might go in expecting something that you're not going to get. And I think that was really prevalent with Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
Where people went in there thinking they're just going to get another MCU movie, and it was completely different style, completely different tone, completely different story and everything. And they walked away unsatisfied and a little like shook. And so I think the same thing kind of goes with Thor 4, is that a lot of people went in thinking they're going to get just another Thor Ragnarok. And that's not really what it was. Like, it was Thor Ragnarok on drugs.
Steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, the thing that made Thor Ragnarok work was that it was an MCU movie directed by Mr. Waititi.
Yeah.
Thor 4 didn't really even feel like an MCU movie. It just felt like a Waititi project.
Yeah.
So it didn't have a flavor of Waititi. It was just straight Waititi. And that kind of makes it sound like I hated it a little more than I did. I didn't hate it. Since this movie has been out and since we had the week delay because we were all dying last week, it has come out that the original cut was about 4 hours long.
Jesus, I did not see that. Okay.
Yeah. I kind of feel that better pacing and better editing might have fixed a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, knowing now that it was 4 hours long, I can tell. I do feel like a lot of this was kind of chopped up because there were parts of it that I did really enjoy. The big standout to me, obviously, Christian Bale as Gore. Yeah, and we always knew that was going to be good. But the other one for me is Russell Crowe as Zeus. That entire segment, that was great. Everything else just felt rushed, but also dragged and had really weird pacing issues. And you get what I'm saying? Like, the parts that I knew I was going to like going in, I liked. But everything else felt weird.
Two big things for me. Act 1 and Act 2, specifically Act 1, I hated so much. Not only the pacing, the pacing was awful. Like, it all felt so rushed. Like, I did not have room to breathe and absorb anything. It just felt like it was just stitched together. Act 2, pacing was better, but really Act 1 and 2, what I hated the most was the comedy aspect of it. It was not the same comedy that we got in Thor Ragnarok, which is not inherently a bad thing. But in Thor Ragnarok, it was goofy, but Thor was not the joke. Thor was placed in scenarios where he could riff off of what was happening.
Right.
But in Thor Love and Thunder, Thor became the joke.
Yep.
They made him almost stupid in this movie.
Yeah.
And
that's actually my biggest complaint with this movie too.
Yeah, the term himbo has been thrown around.
That was actually the term I was going to use in this discussion.
Yeah,
yes.
and not in a good way, because he was kind of a himbo in Endgame, but now
he was going through something.
And,
but now he's kind of a
it
doofus.
went from endearing to he's the butt of the joke.
Right.
Yeah. And so I hated that so much. Like, I really not to say I wasn't laughing out loud occasionally. Like, there were some genuinely funny moments. But it was just almost nonstop joke back to back to back. And I was just like, this is way too much.
And it wasn't always good.
It wasn't always good. And so, there was Act 1. That was just a train wreck for me. Act 2 was slightly better as we started getting into what the story was going to be. Act 3 kind of redeemed the movie as a whole for me. Like, I loved the way the story and everything wrapped up in Act 3. So that kind of saved it for me, but not enough to like really make it a good movie for me. But yeah,
See,
so
I was completely dissatisfied at the end.
Interesting. Okay, we'll get into that. So, yeah, as a whole, Act 1, just awful. Comedy, pacing, just not my thing. I was very disappointed by that. What about you, Jason?
I agree with you on pretty much all your points. There's, I think for me, the biggest issue was what you said was how Thor has become the butt of the jokes, or he is the joke. He's kind of gone through a reverse. He's gone through a character regression.
Yeah.
Which I think is a poor choice, because he's a being that's supposed to be thousands of years old?
1,500. Yeah.
1,500 years old. And, at the end of the first movie and during the second movie, he was actually a very thoughtful and very considerate person, while he was, becoming a better version of himself. And none of that was present in this movie. He was thoughtless and careless, and he didn't seem like he had had gone through any growth whatsoever. And in fact, he was regressing, and it didn't make sense for me. And so from that perspective, the whole movie was wrong for me. And also, the cold open with Christian Bale. I mean, his acting is excellent, but like there was nothing to that story that they were trying to build up.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So that scene, as I was watching it, I felt the same way. It felt like we didn't really need that scene.
Yeah.
Because it was very spoon fed to you.
It should have been a lot less or a lot more.
Yeah, like it was like, okay, he's dying. All of a sudden, he's just magically in front of his god, and there just happens to be the weapon on the ground that he could use to kill that god. And all of a sudden, he's the villain. It was just very spoon fed. Like, I feel like we did not need that origin scene right there.
Well, and it also started a trend for the rest of the movie, in that all gods, except for Thor, are heartless beings. And when we go to Zeus, or when we when we talk to, or when we see other gods and goddesses, they don't show any compassion for humanity or the people that worship them. And we know that's not the case, because Odin, when we saw him in the movies, was very compassionate and a leader in it. And they're trying to present this very flat, one-dimensional character for all the gods to make Christian Bale's Gar's point. And I think that wasn't earned.
It's just at odds, because we've spent so much of this phase in the MCU, phase 4. A lot of it is actually dealt with religion and with gods.
Yeah, specifically over in the TV side of things on Disney. Yeah.
And by and large, it has been so affirming and positive, and they even figured out ways to make it so that essentially every religion is valid. And then we just get to this, and it's, I don't know, it's nothing but, like you said, just a almost like a caricature of awfulness from everybody. Mm-hmm. And I mean, again, like, it is worth pointing out that I thought Russell Crowe was hilarious in that entire segment.
Oh yeah,
and
I mean, this is acting aside. All of this is acting aside, because the acting is
from
fine.
A narrative standpoint. Yeah, from a narrative standpoint, it's problematic.
I think that's worth saying. Is so it's really not the actors or the acting or anything that was the problem with this movie. All of them were fantastic. Christian Bale.
Yeah, I feel like every
Crowe,
person did a good job.
It was just the story and the direction that was a huge problem.
Just a miss.
Well, I have to say this. Okay. I really like Natalie Portman as an actress. I think she's got some phenomenal acting chops. She's just like one of those actresses or actors that you just really enjoyed to see, because they're so good at what they do, and they always look really good doing it. She is not an action hero to me, and she didn't cut it for this.
I feel like she wasn't given much to do. Was the biggest issue.
Yeah. And she's just not an action hero. I'm sorry. Like, she was not another Thor to me. Like Tessa Thompson that's the Valkyrie. Yeah. And then Lady Sif. Those they're great.
They come across as heroic. Yeah.
Right.
Well, so let's tie that back into the story. So I had a I wouldn't say a problem. I didn't have a problem with it. I just felt like it was not great. And I if I'm understanding it correctly, it does tie into how it worked in the comic books. But the way that she became Mighty Thor,
right?
Just yet again, it was one of those. It felt like it was spoon fed.
Right.
Like they had
Forced.
a very forced thing. Like they had a flashback scene put in the middle of the movie where it shows Thor and Jane in the past enjoying their time together in a relationship. And that scene really spoon fed you how it was possible that she was drawn to Mjolnir and became Mighty Thor. It was basically Thor whispered to the hammer, "Hey, look out for her if she ever needs it." And that was all it was. Like that was a very like, this is why this is possible. That's it.
So
a very quick thing.
See, that's what I was going to say. I don't hate the idea as much as I hate the execution.
Yeah.
Like the idea of Thor can bestow spells and magic upon the hammer just like his dad could.
That's fine.
Thematically, that's
makes
cool.
sense. Yeah, that makes
I'm
sense.
for it. Again, it just comes down to, instead of she goes to find the hammer and it glows for a second and then now she's Mighty Thor. Like there should have been buildup. There should have been suspense. There should have been like, it's going to come, but make me wait for a second. Like it's there, again, it all comes back to pacing. Like inherently on paper, I don't think there was anything terribly wrong with this movie. I do agree with the regression of character.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought about it that way until you said it that way. But yeah, he's essentially character-wise back to where he was at the beginning of his arc.
I think he's worse.
And that's upsetting. To me, the biggest issue with this movie, and the only thing we haven't really talked about, is that it is very indicative of where the MCU is at right now. And that is, there doesn't feel like there's a big overarching plot here.
Yeah, I agree.
This, more than any of the other projects so far, has felt like a side mission. In that nothing really feels terribly different at the end than it did at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I saw an interesting statistic. If you count the TV shows, which we've been told you have to, that they are essential viewing, the MCU Phase 4 is now longer than the rest of the MCU put together.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And so far it has gone nowhere, really.
Yeah. It seems like they don't have a destination.
Correct.
Right now. Like, it was clear, like, even though they changed things up a little bit, you could tell that maybe how they brought Thanos about or how they were going to bring him on board may have changed a few times, but that was the end game.
But that was always the plan. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Like the goal was always to get to Thanos.
It seems like they don't have anything going on right now. And so it seems lost.
Yeah, because when we started, it felt like there was a plan. It felt like we were going to get into the multiverse and Kang.
Right.
And that has just all kind of just gone to the side.
Yeah.
And so this is either the world's greatest misdirect or there's just no plan.
Yeah. And just to reiterate how off this movie was, my favorite parts of the movie was Stormbreaker's jealousy and the screaming goats.
Yeah.
Those are my two favorite parts of the movie.
Two of the goofiest things, but also like they worked.
Right.
Yeah.
Stormbreaker was jealous of Mjolnir, and they had giant screaming goats, which was hilarious. Every time they popped in there, I laughed my butt off.
Yeah, it never quit being funny.
Right.
So for time, let's go ahead and get into our scores and final thoughts. So I will go first. If it was only Act 2 or Act 1 and 2, I would probably give this as a 2 out of 5. But I think Act 3 kind of saved it for me as far as the story goes. So I'm going to get a 3 out of 5. Thor is, and Chris Hemsworth specifically, is a very good comedic character.
Yeah.
They just went way too hard on this movie
it was just wrong for this movie.
Yeah. And just the way you were spoon-fed so much and the plot was just band-aided together did not work for me. I was really disappointed about the Guardians of the Galaxy and why they were even there at all. Because it seemed like as soon as the problem arose that they could have helped with, they bailed. That didn't make any sense to me. Lots of lazy things just as far as writing goes. Lots of positives. Not like acting. Russell Crowe, Christian Bale, Chris Hemsworth, fantastic acting. There were some nice touches as far as the directing went, like in Act 3 where the scenes were all black and white. That was fantastic. I thought that was a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
There were some comedic elements that did hit, like the goats and Stormbreaker. I thought that was awesome. I thought it was a very sad, emotional ending for Jane. I thought it was well earned. I thought that was a nice way to tie up that loose end. And we got a tease of Hercules. Mm-hmm. Definitely some positives, lots of negatives for me. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. Who wants to go next?
I was ultimately disappointed, just in general. I'm going to give it 3 murdered gods out of 5.
Nice. All right, Jason.
Yeah. I was pretty disappointed with this one as well. There were some good elements. I'll probably watch it again, but not in the theater. I'm going to give it a 2.75.
So we're all kind of on the same page.
I was actually worried because I knew I didn't like this one, and you guys liked Doctor Strange and I didn't. So I was worried I was going to be on the wrong side of the fence again, but I like that we all agreed on this one. Yeah. I like that. I feel better.
All right. So Thor, Love and Thunder as a team, it basically averages out to be a 3. It's a 2.92 because of Jason's decimals. But 2.92 out of 5. Not great, not horrible. We might watch it again at some point. All right. We have just under 20 minutes to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 10, as well as the full series as a whole. Jason, Josh, you guys actually watched this one before I got a chance to, and you were blowing up our phones. Very excited to talk about it, but you were so hesitant to talk about spoilers, and I thank you for that. Right. But you guys enjoyed this episode a lot, and I think it's because of how it referenced the original series in the Season 1, Episode 14, I believe. Is that correct?
Anyway, so I know it's Season 1. I know.
Yeah, so basically the way it called back to the original series, you guys enjoyed a lot. So how about you guys take this away? I'll chime in as needed.
Well, Josh, you are thoroughly enjoying this, and I'm enjoying watching you get on the Star Trek wagon.
You're enjoying my enjoyment?
I really am. So I want you to go and talk about this first.
No, I'm happy to, since it sounds like your throat is about to fall out of your butthole.
Wow.
No, so this was a love letter to Star Trek, pretty much from beginning to end.
The entire series has been.
But, I mean, like, let's be real. But the premise of the episode being,
Pike is facing his fate.
Yeah, he has decided that he's going to take the bull by the horns and maybe try to change his fate a little bit. And he ends up getting visited by his future self, who lets him know that this is probably not the best idea for a variety of reasons. And due to space magic, he's going to show him maybe how this works out. And it ends up with Captain Pike having survived his accident, and in fact did it so well that it wasn't really even considered an accident. No one was hurt. But that leaves him as captain of the Enterprise during a particularly important moment in time when in the original series it was Captain Kirk. Mm-hmm. And what's so cool about the episode is if you watch them in tandem, or if you go on to the YouTubes, there have been a few people who have done it for you. You can compare it shot for shot to the original episode. And it is incredible. I'm talking the way the characters move, the way the camera's work is done. Even special effects are rendered in ways that complement what happened in the original series. The dialogue, they even recreated the music with a modern orchestra. And it's incredible. And for me, I was hooked the second that Future Pike showed up wearing the Wrath of Khan era uniform. Like, I geeked the crap out. I thought that was the best thing ever, because that's one of my favorite Star Trek uniforms. And they modernized it just like they have the rest of the uniforms. It has the Delta texturing along the shoulders and the arms and things like that. So it's not an exact copy, but it's kind of like what they've done with the rest of the show. It is what this would have looked like with modern technology and a better budget. Let's just be real. Yeah. And so it was incredible, but Someone else say something. I'm just so.
Oh, I'm enjoying listening to you.
Yeah, you're going great. So,
I mean, just all the way down to like beat for beat. Like they had an idea of what they wanted to do. How would this situation have been different if you'd had a different captain there? And because the running, not joke, but the running idea with Kirk was that he was kind of a warrior captain during peacetime. And Picard has often been called the opposite, where he was a diplomat during a time of unrest. And we kind of learned in this episode that Pike normally falls into that more diplomatic approach, and he wants everyone to talk and to get along and find common ground. And the message of the show was sometimes you got to give violence a chance, because in the in the original series, Kirk hunted down the Romulan ship and eventually destroyed it. Now, he did do the Starfleet thing at the end and offer to bring everyone aboard before their ship blew up, but Romulans don't do that. But the point is, he attacked and he prevented a war. Captain Pike did not. And from a moral standpoint, we know that that's the correct thing to do. You should try to find a diplomatic solution. You should try to find, but he started a war because he was hesitant and because he tried to do the right thing. And so this is the first time that we've gotten the message that sometimes if you do the right thing, it doesn't work out.
Yeah. So big thing in this episode is that we got our first look at Captain Kirk, not his brother, Captain Kirk himself.
How did you guys feel about that? Specifically, Jason, how did you feel about? Because I have opinions, but I want to hear yours.
You know, it's fun. I was very forgiving because this is not, in this representation, this is not the canon timeline's Kirk. It is a Kirk who has not been on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Right. It's a Kirk who has not had the experiences because Pike has been present. So it's a different Kirk than we would be used to. So having said that, it worked fine for me. I think I expected something a little more brash in his character, but I mean, what Kirk was pretty much reflected there. Interestingly enough, my sister's only comment to me about this episode was, yeah, that Kirk doesn't do it for me.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of people online who kind of said the same thing. I'm kind of in the middle. I felt like his representation was fine. Like I didn't feel like he was a bad Kirk.
No.
The biggest thing for me, and it's kind of silly, but the biggest thing for me, he's a scrawny little fella.
That was my only thing, because like I don't have much history with Kirk. My only one is Chris Pine.
Like he just looks like a little man.
He was very small.
And William Shatner, I mean, he's not super tall, but
he was dense.
He was never thin. Like
he was dense.
Like you gotta remember, like Kirk in the 70s, William Shatner in the 70s, like he was considered hunky, you know? Like that was he had a classic man vibe, you know? And if anything, throughout the series, they kind of had to wrangle in his weight a little bit. There's a long running rumor that he wore a girdle.
That's why the green uniform came into play.
Yeah. He was having a fat day and they needed a way to cover it up. And so
that's awesome.
Like this guy, I can't remember his name. This new fella, new Kirk, he did a good job. Like it felt like Kirk, like I bought it as Kirk, but it's the dumbest thing. But I spent the entire time he just looks thin. Yeah. Like get the dude a sandwich. Like Kirk is supposed to look like he could get into a fight and at least hold his own, you know?
He's wiry.
Yeah, maybe
he's wiry.
Like, he's got that scrawny strength. I don't know. But I looked at that Kirk and I was like, I could take that Kirk.
I just reminded myself as I did a really, really horrible impression of another actor from an entirely different movie with a relevant line. The Scottish accent. I like seeing Scotty's arm at the bottom of the Jeffrey suit.
That was cool.
About that. Yeah,
lots of little Easter eggs like that. Yeah.
And
it's just
like some of my favorite Easter eggs, and were like some of the cheesy elements. like there was an explosion where like the captain of the other ship got like sucked out of the ship, and like it was very obviously horrible CGI, but like I think it was done on purpose. Yeah. And then there was the moment where they discovered that the Romulans looked a lot like
Vulcans,
yeah. And like it was the old school music, and like they all panned over, and like it ended up on Spock, and he had the cheesy eyebrow raise.
Yeah, he did his first Spock eyebrow raise.
Yeah, so I thought all those callbacks and Easter eggs to the original show was awesome.
Yeah, I had somebody discuss with me. They were saying that they found that part was unbelievable, and it kind of ruined that part of the show where Spock didn't realize that Romulans were the same. But then I said, well, it's actually canon.
Yeah,
because that's precisely what happened in the original series first seasons was a Balance of Terror, which is what this was.
Yeah, this is the recreation of that.
I don't like that because even as someone that's never seen the original show, like I knew that was a callback. So like I liked it.
Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't watch that and think it was not believable because I knew it was it was referencing something.
I think that's mostly indicative of people just not understanding or not remembering. I know they understand it. You got to remember where this takes place in the timeline, because chronologically as a viewer, we've known since the very first season of this 40-year-long saga that Romulans and Vulcans are very closely related. This is not a surprise to us.
Yeah, they're distantly related.
In the timeline, they don't know that yet. They've been at war with a group of people that they've never seen before. So to them, it is a shock and it is a surprise. But this episode references one of the very first episodes of Star Trek ever where they discover that. So yeah, like to them, it is a surprise. They didn't know that. So it's just, but yeah, like I felt like that was, yes, it was a little cheesy, a little corny, but like for me, it was right on. Like it's because again, it was an homage to the original thing. And again, I didn't even think it was over the top. It was just, I felt like it was perfect.
Yeah. I can't remember if there was a part of me that wondered if this was a throwback to an original episode because it was familiar. what if Pike was versus Kirk, or if I read it online that this was a throwback. I don't know which was first, so I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I was sick in the middle of all this, so some things are just a blur. But I remember feeling just really impressed and a lot of enjoyment when I went back and watched the original episode from the 1960s and seeing all of this, the play-by-plays that they did between the two episodes. And it was really enjoyable to see it. It was like a deep dive as you continued to go into it and you read more trivia about it. So I think this particular episode in tandem with the original episode from the original series is really a good exploration of Star Trek for any new viewer.
Yeah, it's worth noting that
I think these two episodes are really good for study.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the original episode is considered to this day one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek ever.
Yeah.
So
let's use that as a segue to wrap this up because we are running out of time.
We are running out of time.
So the way you just explained that does sound like you loved this episode. So let's go and move into scores and final thoughts as we tie this into how we feel about the series as a whole. So let's quickly give me the scores for this final episode, then we'll talk about the series. So I'm giving it 5 out of 5, as if that's any surprise.
I'm giving it 6 time dilations out of.
Can we do that? Are we allowing that?
Yeah.
Are we allowing 6?
6 time delineations.
I think the intent can be there, but from a technical standpoint, no.
All right, so 5 out of 5. All right, Jason, what about you?
I'm also 5 out of 5 on this episode.
All right, so how are you guys feeling about this series as a whole? Because with that score put in there, our final thing, everything averaged together, all of our scores from all the individual episodes averaged together across the three of us is giving season 1 a 4.84 out of 5.
I think that's accurate.
Right. That feels right. Yeah.
They had a few misses.
Yeah.
But
overall, they were so forgivable. Yeah.
Yeah. And overall, this has been like, it's been a beacon of positive media in a very, I think, tumultuous time in humanity's existence.
Yeah, we needed this show right now.
And it makes me smile and makes me feel giddy, and I really enjoy watching it.
Well, I think it's just, it hits all the marks. It's well made, high quality production, well acted, great story. You never know what you're going to get. It's
in a
funny.
Good way. Yeah.
It's funny, suspenseful, has action. There's some horror elements sprinkled in every once in a while. It's just, it literally has all of the boxes checked.
It is the perfect show. Yeah.
There are very rarely anything that does not work. Except that one episode that was just... But no, that was to be expected at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's great. I like the callbacks to the original show, as from what I can tell. I like how it fits in with modern times as well. It's a good encapsulation of what Star Trek is.
It's worth noting, season 2 is finished filming.
Right. So now they're in post.
Maybe it won't be a huge wait until we get season 2.
I hope not. Yeah, this was one of the first series in a long time. And Josh, you said this in an earlier episode of our podcast. This is one of the first series in a long time where I've been eager to watch the next episode. Where I just
today's new episode day. Yeah,
it's like yay. Yeah.
So that is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Probably our favorite show of all time. I don't know. Maybe.
It's my favorite.
Pretty close. Pretty close.
So we are done reviewing Star Trek. On our next episode, episode 16 that comes out next week, we will be reviewing The Boys Season 3, if Jason can stomach the rest of the episodes. We will be reviewing Miss Marvel as an entire series, if Josh can just commit to it.
I'm just going to read the Wikipedia.
That's
cliff note
cheating. That's cheating.
I'm going to cliff note it.
That's not how we do things.
No spark notes for you.
We will also be continuing the Peak Geek debate, where we will be debating Jedi, Sith, and maybe some other ones. I don't know. We make this
maybe
up as
a
we go,
gray
people.
Jedi just for fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell all your friends about this. Let them know what we're going to be talking about. Share it.
Let them know that this is not Jason's normal voice.
This is not my normal voice.
All right, Jason, take us out.
All right. Oh, yes. We wish you long days and pleasant nights.
That is the worst voice to quote.
We wish you long days and pleasant nights.
How about this? We wish you long days and pleasant nights.
We wish you long days and pleasant nights.
We wish you long days and pleasant nights.
We wish you. Hang on. Hang on. Let me try this.
This is all staying in, by the way.
God. Don't do that. We wish you. We wish you. We wish you. We wish you long days. We wish you long days and pleasant nights.
That's it. That's what you get. See you later, people.